Welcome. This is Lisa Martinez. I am the founder of Little with Great Love, and I have some special guests here today. And I would love for them to introduce themselves to you. So please join me.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Nadji. I'm one of the co-owners of Mind and Body Integrative Counseling Center. I'm a mental health counselor. I'm also a marriage and family therapist.
My name is Yisel. I am a licensed couples and family therapist, and I also specialize in trauma, depression, and anxiety. And my passion for the field of trauma led me to enroll in the PhD so that I can continue providing my expertise and my passion to where I can reach other therapists and other professionals in the field, because I'm only one and I can only see so many clients. I feel like if they have the knowledge, they have the proper training, they'll be able to reach even more.
I'm Taylor Rosand. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. Been working in the field for, 7-8 years now. And I have always worked with trauma, but really got into it and got a lot more training over the past couple of years. And it's really important. And as we'll learn today, trauma is not what we think it is. And it can be the big traumas that we think about, but it can also be the little things that affect us. So our goal for today is to really help everyone else understand kind of how to recognize trauma, how it affects people differently, and that's our mission as Mind and Body Integrative Counseling Center. We really want to change people's views on trauma, right? We want people to seek out help. It doesn't have to be a stigma. If you're going through something, there's people that can help you. And so our goal is, through not only therapy, but other methods of healing, you can start to live a happier life where, your physical body, your mental body, your spiritual body can be healed. So that's really our goal through our company that we started, is just to really reach as many people as we can and help them live that happier life that they deserve to live.
Amen. How did the three of you kind of come together to do this work? I'm so interested to hear this.
Okay, who wants to start? Well, Taylor and I met years ago. We used to work together at another agency, and after that, we met again at another agency that she brought me on over, and then I met Yisel. We were partners and built an awesome and beautiful connection as well. And you guys can fill in the blank with the rest of it.
The pandemic hit and we were all out of jobs at that point. Mm-hmm. So we decided that, it was time to, go the next milestone in our life. And we decided that to continue and, with our work and how passionate we were, to really, in the most simple way, to provide a safe space for individuals to heal. But not only individuals, but also other colleagues in the field as well. Mm-hmm. For them to feel that they're heard, that their struggles that come with our profession, mm-hmm. and taking on sometimes some of those traumatic things that have happened, and how to deal with that and how to take care of ourselves. Because if we're empty and we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we really take care of others? Yeah.
We've been working together for a long time, so we knew individually as therapists, we were a great therapists. And then we knew individually as leaders, we were all great leaders. So we wanted to put all of that together, right? And create this business that would kind of combine all of our strengths and bring that out to other people, to other counselors, because eventually we want to bring on other counselors to work with us and really teach them and help them feel, supported and provide a space, because I think that a lot of us as counselors, we get burnt out. Like that's a part of our our journey. So our goal, and all three of us really strive to hold each other accountable a lot of the time too, that we have to engage in self-care, and we have to have our own therapists, and we have to do those things, right? Because without them, we can't do the work we do. So I think our passion really created this place where we could really grow into the business that we've become.
I love that. I think that that's what you said, Little with Great Love is a healing ministry. And we started about a year ago. And I actually have a traumatized past as well as a youth. And Nadji and I know each other from our families. She is like the god sister of my niece, who's also on our team. And, when I was going to write this blog about trauma, it really was like, this is an opportunity. This is something so much bigger. I have a mental health background myself, besides growing up in a home where I was sexually abused as a child at 4 years old. And no one in my family knew that that was happening. It was painful for me, of course, as a child. And I repressed that until the age of 19. So it came up when I was in college. And it's not easy for me to talk about. It's even with a mental health background. It's not easy for me to go to therapy. I'm currently in therapy again. I went when I was in college. I went a couple times in college, and then went again in my 20s after I graduated. And then I think it was probably 2 years ago, where I, in my journey with infertility, was on a lot of hormones. And as a result of that, my anxiety, which I have an anxiety disorder, was extremely heightened. And I just couldn't function anymore. And if you're having panic attacks, I was also having social anxiety and different symptoms coming up, that I could no longer function anymore. I was also a caretaker for my dad at that time, as he was going through his final, time in life before he passed away last year. And so I was under an extreme amount of stress, besides the hormones, the infertility, and I had lost my mother, and I'd taken care of her when she was dying. And so it really came to a critical mass for me. And I think sometimes we can become it's very hard to ask for help. Even people that know they need help and know all the resources that are out there, very, very hard to ask for help. My therapist, I love, it's one of the best things I do for myself every week or every 2 weeks now. It was every week. And then we got to a rhythm. We got into a place.
Graduated. Good.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Sometimes I want to be like, hey, what are you doing this week? Stuff. But, it's really helped me with learning about my anxiety in a new way, not just book knowledge that I learned when I was in school. It's helped me to decide if medication is the right choice for my particular state in life, my case, my journey. It's helped me figure out that EMDR, which these ladies are going to be talking about, and I won't even this is the trailer. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. They'll tell you what it is, because they're much better at explaining that thing, is that it really helped me to find deeper freedom and peace and healing from that trauma. Yeah. And so when we wanted to have this discussion, it was a chance for me to be able to have people that would explain that kind of that other side of, I'm in this chair and they're sitting in that chair. And from this chair, I can tell you everything that kind of goes along with it. And from that chair, they can kind of give us a little bit of an understanding of why this is so important, and that there are resources out there to be able to help other people that have been traumatized. So can you ladies explain to me, what is trauma?
Yes, that it's big question out of itself, just because the word trauma, immediately when the word comes up, you go to, that place to where it's something really big. Not saying that, there's little and big ones, right? Because we all experience trauma in a different way, right? But if I was to explain trauma in a way that I was explaining to a family member, right? Like I do sometimes, or some of the baseball moms in the team, that they don't know, like, no, we haven't been through trauma. Kids haven't been through trauma. I'm like, well, okay, well, it occurs when an actual or perceived threat, okay? So it doesn't have to actually be happening. Just you thinking that it's happening can be traumatic, okay? And we're gonna come to that. Overwhelms a person's usual coping ability. So we go through something, we're able to cope with it, then it's not traumatic, right? But what happens when that's something, right? You're not able to cope with it. There's nothing in your skill box or anything that you have learned before, or you've been through before, that it's able to, push you to continue going and move forward. So three important things, or the E's of trauma, right? There has to be an event. And like I said, it could be actual event or something that you're perceiving. And it could be single event, or it could be repeated, right? Then the second E will be the experience, right? Like I said, trauma is different from everybody. And I learned that not only through my clients, but doing the work myself as a client, right? That maybe what I consider a huge traumatic incident for me was a car accident. Someone could go to multiples and they're able to cope with it. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't able to drive for a long time. I wasn't, because I wasn't able to cope with that, right? So trauma looks different for everybody. And then the last one is the effect that it has, right? And most of the times it's immediately, but sometimes it has a delay on set. So you might not know that it's coming from that event, mm-hmm. right? Because it hits you and in the middle of something else, and then you think it's that, but that's not really the root, right? So what we're looking at really is like the symptoms. We're not really looking deep into where that came from. And then the effect can be, short, it could be long-term. So that's basically, what trauma is. So actual or perceived threat, and then overwhelms your ability to cope with whatever happened.
3 E's. That's easier to remember.
Yes.
I like that.
And experience, effect.
Yes. Yeah. So we have these 3 things, and we know then that trauma is different for each one of us. So if somebody has now kind of said, well, geez, maybe last year was traumatic for me in some way, or maybe last year they didn't feel that as much, maybe they were in a different way, but maybe something has come up from, like me, from my youth, or something. What do you think is like the next kind of like, step for somebody? Like when we have trauma, like what kind of things that you do at your practice help people?
I mean, I think, with trauma can, like you said, trauma can come up later in life, right? So trauma is remembered in our bodies, right? So I may have pushed something back and I don't remember the details of it. I couldn't tell you what happened, but my body knows exactly what happened, right? And it stores those memories, right? So anything that triggers this traumatic event can bring it back, and you will be experiencing your present situation as a past event, right? So something when I did my EMDR training, my trainer brought to our attention, and it resonates with me so much. When the past is present, that is how you know that it's affecting your life significantly, right? So if you're noticing that these past feelings are coming up and you don't know, or maybe you don't even know where they're coming from, but they're all of a sudden here, then that's an indicator that something's going on for you, right? So Nadji's going to talk a little bit about what that looks like in your body and all of that, but noticing those triggers are really important because that can tell you, hey, I need to pay attention to this because something's affecting me.
Okay, so trigger, that's a great kind of way to describe it, right? And that trigger would be what can you explain that trigger to me?
Yeah. So, and a trigger can be a smell,
Mm,
a person, words,
mm,
emotions, or feelings, right? Or pains. So it's the trigger, it's like that unwanted feeling that it's attached to something else. But that might something else, we might not know what it is. But we know, you know, when I come into this room and I see all the walls that are white, it's bringing me somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's triggering something, and maybe I'm not conscious about it, but my subconscious is bringing the same feelings or emotions that I was feeling at the time when it actually happened. So it's not like definitely like, okay, this is a trigger, because it could be so many things. So becoming aware of that, okay, so I started feeling this way. What came before that? What was happening at that time?
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do in therapy too, is really focusing in on like, okay, so this is how you're feeling in the moment. Now let's start to recognize what happened right before this, right? Because if we can notice what that like we call the antecedent, right? The like before, then we can start to piece together what was the trigger for this emotion, for that behavior, right? Because something might trigger you and all of a sudden you're crying or you're screaming at somebody, or all of a sudden you can't talk because you're so anxious about something. All of those things are triggers, right? Or responses to triggers, right? So if you have a trigger that happens, it's figuring out, oh, well, somebody cut me off in traffic, right? And so that reminded me of when I got in my car accident and I had to slam on the brakes. That's a trigger, right? Because now, oh my God, I'm back in that same situation. So it can be a million things, but it's recognizing that the behavior or the emotion that happened right after that is debilitating for you or upsetting for you or causing you a problem, right? And then we can start to uncover what the actual trigger is.
wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And the way someone described it one time to me was like our brain's like a file cabinet, and we store all this information. And then like when something happens in the present, like you were talking about, right? That it's like it pulls up that file of what happened before, right? And then we're cross-referencing that.
Yep.
We're not aware of that consciously. That's what's happening right in our bodies, what we're talking about. Like you feel things in your body. And so we're reacting. And for me, a big thing that I've learned is that my reaction, somebody might see a reaction and be very judgmental about that. You know, they could say, well, that girl, she's like all over the place, or, you know, like she's like totally overreacting, you know, or, you know, we say this about each other, right? Like we say that without a context to understand why are they reacting that way in that situation. And my therapist has really helped me to understand sometimes that I become flooded, so to speak, where I'm so triggered in that moment of whatever, just I'm not even aware a lot of times of what's triggered it. Sometimes now I am very aware because I've been putting in the time with professionals like you to be able to say, I'm really flooded right now. And even with my husband, there's been times, you know, been married for 10 years now, almost in June, that we have to say, you know, right now, I can't talk to you, you know, and for the other person, like they could be triggered as well. So sometimes my husband is triggered and his response in an argument is to, I want to resolve it right now, you know? And so he's coming towards me to say, like, I want to fix this. I want to resolve this. And I'm moving away to say, I can't and stuff. And I think that that's kind of an important just insight for people to understand that sometimes you physically cannot stop what's happening as a response to trauma. And if you see somebody overreacting in a way, if you see somebody like they're having riots and they're having, all the different things that we've experienced and some of the really horrific things that have happened that you just turn on the news, you'll see it. We think, how in the world could someone do something like that? Well, I mean, don't you guys see it every day? Don't you talk to people that?
And even to go on the very opposite end of that, even for somebody who's underreactive, right? Because that's a whole other situation. So you have people who are overreacting, but you have people that withdraw, right? Or you have people that isolate themselves, or they don't seem to care, or it's not bothering them, right? That's their coping mechanism, right? That's how they learned, and I'll touch on this later, but that's how they learn to survive, right? So yes, it can either be that big reaction of like violent behavior, or really big emotions, or what have you, right? Or it can be the very opposite end of like, I'm not talking, I have a blank stare, I can't interact with you right now, so I'm leaving, right? Those are the avoidance behaviors. So yeah, so there's a lot there, but it's all trauma.
It's all trauma. Well, you said something that was really interesting to me about we hold it in our bodies. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, I'm going to let Nadji touch on that a little bit, because she's going to talk to you about what that looks like and how it gets held and how it affects our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about two different ways that it can affect. So of course there's more ways, but I'm going to be going through emotional and the physical, the body, right? Emotionally, emotion is like the most common way that trauma is manifested, right? We can be feeling confusion, sadness, guilt. We could be feeling anger, disbelief, an array of emotions. Anxiety and depression, those disorders are the most common conditions that people experience with trauma, right? So anxiety can be manifested by having like night terrors, mood swings, poor concentration. Some people have chronic fatigue, and then they with that anxiety as well. But of course, individuals, like they stated earlier, everybody experiences trauma differently. Not one person can experience the same as another, right? There's different triggers as well. One of the ways that Taylor had touched upon is the lack of reaction, right? So maybe not being able to identify what you're feeling, right? You're not understanding, you can't put words to these situations or emotions, or even numbing. Numbing is another one, that you get detached from your thoughts, your behaviors, or even memories from what happened, maybe in the recent past or in the early childhood, right? One of the other ones that go kind of hand in hand with those overreactions, overreactions would be like hyperarousal or hyper alertness, where the body is constantly preparing itself or on guard or ready for something to happen, on alert, right? So an example that's given is, say you are walking in a forest and you're on a trail and you see a grizzly bear, right? What are you going to do? You're either going to do one of the three F's. You're going to either fight the grizzly bear. I don't know how good of an idea that would be. You're either going to freeze, or you're going to flee or run away, right? So the three F's, right? With people that have a long history of trauma, imagine that grizzly bear coming home every day. You experience that every day. So you're constantly on that alert. Your cortisol levels, your adrenaline levels are heightened consistently. You don't have time to really breathe and take a break. So that's where that fatigue comes in. So I'm going to go into the physical now. So with the physical part, the body really has an immense connection with your emotions. There's a lot of research with that. The mind-body connection is really, really tied together. And one of the words is somatization, which is the body, right? and how the individual responds differently. So a lot of people may have chronic pain, say chronic shoulder pain or lower back pain, and they feel that trauma there, or things get stuck in that area, or the energy is stuck there, and you just can't push through that because the pain is held in that area. So a lot of complaints or somatic complaints or physical complaints that people have are gestational, muscle tension, pelvic pain, sleep disturbances, like I said before, many other physical manifestations of trauma that people either avoid speaking about the emotions and only focus on the physical because it's too difficult to talk about the feelings, or not talk about it at all. Sometimes trauma, depending on how long you've experienced it, it could change your DNA. With children, she'll probably go into it, or eventually we'll get into it with children. They experience it for a long time, their DNA can change. Their hormonal system changes, your immune system drops. There's a lot of ways that trauma can really manifest in the body, both physically and emotionally. So it's really important to get that help as soon as possible.
That is, like as you're speaking about it, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. It's like check.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why this is one of the things I love about this conversation, to be able to open up about those things, to say, you're not like you think, oh, like a hypochondriac or something, like she's always got a problem or pain, like there's always something there. I saw this with my dad, was very traumatized growing up as well. And in every sense of the word. And some of the things he told us about and some of the things he never did. And I don't know how much his family even knows all the traumas that he went through. But he was very, very ill. I mean, heart issues, kidney issues, diabetes, depression, anxiety, all these things. And he would bounce from, hospital to rehab to this clinician and that one, well, we think he should have a psych consult, or whatever, come in and talk to him because he seems anxious. I just want to be like, you have no idea, and stuff, because he's getting bounced from person to person. Nobody's stayed with him, to be able to really be able to understand and unpack, that he didn't have kind of the opportunities that I had to be able to go to counseling in my 20s, and to start to unpack that. So he just did the best that he could. And I think that we kind of have to understand these different generations a little bit, right? To understand that those generations maybe didn't know the things that we know today. They didn't have the opportunities that we have today. And those are the generations that might look at our generation and be like, why are you talking about this stuff so much? What are we talking about antidepressants, right?
Yeah. Don't bring your family stuff out into the open, right? Who needs to know about it, right? That's a huge thing. And so going back to holding it in your body, right? When we're holding all of these things in our body, we are not allowing for them to be processed. So they're coming out as all of these different symptoms, right? And so if you think about all of the medications that we get put on, right? High blood pressure medication, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget all of them now, but
diabetic, thyroid.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, all of those things, right? A lot of people have like fibromyalgia or autoimmune disease, all of these things, right? And you sit down, and we do because it's our job, but like you sit down and talk to somebody who has some of these autoimmune disorders. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people who have experienced trauma in their life, right? Whether it was through grief and loss, or through abuse, or through a domestic violence relationship, or you name it. Yeah. And all of that gets harnessed in your body. Now I'm taking these medications, right? And it's treating the symptoms, right? Even taking like anxiety medication, depression medication, it's treating my symptoms. I'm taking it, right? I feel okay. I feel better. I'm managing it. But until you get to that core of where all of those symptoms are coming from and you heal from the core, there's not a whole lot that's really going to improve, right? So our body holds on to that memory of the trauma. And until we reprocess that and we come to a place of like healing from it, we're really not letting go of any of those symptoms that come with it, right? So that's kind of, it's amazing when we talk about this, and we could talk about it for like 75 years about all of these things, but it is eye-opening how important it is to really touch on these traumas. And as you said, our parents, right, and their parents, therapy, mental health, that was like not a thing, right? And even if it was a thing, it was taboo, it was stigmatized, like you're crazy if you go there, right? If there's something wrong with you. And so we all see it, I'm sure, in our families, you know, as our older cousins, uncles, grandparents, whoever, who had this thing happening with them, but nobody knew what it was, right? We talk about like family histories with our clients when we have a new client, and we're like, so is anybody in your family diagnosed with this or that? They're like, well,
not diagnosed, but I could tell that there's some things that
yeah. So it's really important to like recognize that our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, the ones before us, they've survived the best they could with the means that they had to deal with it, right? And even now in 2021, we are still destigmatizing mental health, which is insane, but we are. So we're still working on it, and it's so much better now than it used to be. But you know, I can't tell you how many people will come in contact with and we're like, you should talk to a therapist. Oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. People. No, I don't need that. I'm fine.
Or even some of our clients, you know, there's some questions that say, you know, has anyone insisted that you go to therapy? They're like, no, nobody in my family knows about this, because then they'll make fun of me. They'll be like, why are you wasting your time on doing this? Like, why are you even going, you know, there? But like, think about it, right? When something hurts, we go to the doctor. Now, when our heart hurts, do we go to the doctor or do we go to the specialist? Right? So if we are dealing with trauma, then you go to a specialist, you know, because, you know, we have had clients that come that they've been in therapy before, and, you know, the psychoeducation, that's one of the first things that we do about the brain and trauma and all of this that we're doing. They're like, like one session in, they're like, I'm already feeling so better because you gave me hope that no, there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
You know, no, you know, you show coping skills to deal with abnormal things that shouldn't have happened. Right. So you did what you could at that point. But having that awareness and that insight that, you know, these things do happening actually at a brain level, and there's like changes chemically, right? And so transitioning from what Nadji was saying about the physical and the emotional, right? There's actually brain functions that do change when we go to traumatic incidents and trauma in our lives, right? And if you want to think about it, there's like 3 centers in our brain. There's our thinking center, right? That's the one that, you know, we're able to solve problems, you know, rational thought, and being aware, not only of ourselves and others. So what happens when we go through trauma, right? Well, that thinking center is underactivated because at that point, it's not really necessary to be rational or to think about being aware of others, right? Because at that time, you're in your fear center. What? The one that deals with receiving the information to your senses, right? What I'm hearing, what I'm smelling, the things that we said that could be triggers, right? And so what happens, that one gets overactivated, and fear takes over our whole brain, our function. And going back to where Nadji was saying about the bear, think of it as an alarm system, right? When we go through something that if there's fear, that alarm goes on, right? But then, okay, we get through it, we breathe, our coping skills, and then it goes off. What happens in trauma? Well, that alarm is constantly on, and there's no period where you reset the alarm. No, it's just constantly on. So you're constantly in fight or flight or flee response, right? So there's no way that you're gonna think rationally. There's no way that you're gonna be able to pay attention, right? There's no way that you're gonna think clearly, because these are some of the things that we hear our clients say, right? There is no way that you're gonna be able to manage your emotions. They're like, I want to make this change, but I can't. I can't control what, it takes over me. And it does. It actually does. And over time, if we look at the scans of, a normal individual, that hasn't gone through trauma, and you see the one that has gone through several trauma, there's, the brain size actually shrinks. The loss of connection, neural connections are not there. And we're not able to create more of those connections because of the trauma.
Yeah.
So yes, going back to how it stores, right? It actually changes your brain size.
It's crazy.
And then we say like, no, go to therapy. No, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're like, actually things change.
You're crazy.
Hey, all right.
My trauma has actually changed my brain,
Yes. Yes.
that I think right there, that where you feel validated, right?
Yes.
You feel like maybe other people that have like had a physical issue, and for years they've like said my stomach hurts and no doctors can get to the root of it, and stuff. And I've seen this specialist and I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. It's like the same thing, and stuff, where you kind of like, I know even a family member right now, like you really need therapy, and stuff because of the wound, and stuff. And there's just such a, that's good for you, that works for you, that's good for that. But it's very, very humbling actually, to ask for that help.
Yeah.
And to recognize that, I need to talk to somebody about the things I don't want to say out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a huge thing, just to have courage to go through that door and sit down with you guys, right? I found that we build it up in our mind, and especially if we've been traumatized or we have anxiety, it's even more, right? And stuff, because now, my center here is just like alarm, 5 alarm, and stuff. And you're like the nicest, sweetest people, and stuff like that.
It's scary. It is. It's like, it's you just coming to a completely stranger and just telling them the worst things that have happened to you, and coming in with a sense that like, how is she gonna look at me? What are the faces that she's gonna make? Is she gonna judge me? Like, they do think all of that, and that's why we make it such, and we're so passionate about being trained, like properly trained in evidence-based techniques, because those are the things that a client that has been through trauma is going to look for. Your body language, the expressions that you make in your face. Kids are very, very, very good at reading your body language, and if they think you're not going to be able to handle what they have to say, they won't say it. They won't open up. Yeah. And then they go through years of therapy, but they don't really get to that root. I like to explain it to them like, we have a wound, right? We learn coping skills and we learn things, but it's like a band-aid, right? But the wound is there. It hasn't fully healed. What do we do in therapy? We go in. I tell them we're going to go in, and it's going to feel very uncomfortable, and it's going to feel painful. And you're going to go through the same emotions and feelings that you did, but in a safe space. So we clean it so that wound heals itself, and you don't need to carry a band-aid with you anymore. That is going to continue falling off, and then you're going to put a new one. No, now it's going to be there. You're going to be able to look at your wound, but those negative emotions and feelings that were attached to what happened are no longer going to be there. and you're going to be aware, and you're going to reach your own conclusions, endpoints, and insights about what happened.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's such a powerful image. It's such a powerful image. So you brought up two things. That one is children, right? Is how is children, what a child has gone through, like someone like myself at 4 or 5, 6, 7, whatever, gone through, and then how is that different than an adult going through trauma?
So yeah, children are very resilient, right? And so as a child, if you're experiencing some type of abuse, neglect, any type of trauma, right? Yisel touched on how it changes your brain, right? Which is a huge factor in development, right? Now, as a child, if that trauma is coming from a place where it's a caregiver or somebody very close that we trust, imagine that is where we learn attachment to our parents, our caregivers, our whomever, right? We learn trust, we learn attachment there. So if we're in an unstable environment where we can't develop those safe, stable attachments, now we take that same experience and we put that into our adult lives, right? So as a child, I'm learning that it's not safe for me to ask questions. I better be really careful about how I express my emotions. I better not express my emotions, right? I better be very careful about what my mom or my dad or my caregiver, what mood they're in that day, right? Or the emotions they're showing. So I'll tiptoe around that, right? So now as an adult, in my adult relationships, I am very sensitive to other people that are in the relationship with me. So if I see their mood change, that's a trigger, right? Now my reaction to things is really big, and somebody who's not understanding of what trauma is or attachment or anything like that might go, my gosh, I just moved to the coffee cup and I was in a bad mood this morning and now you're crying here, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, it seems like an overreaction, right? But as a child, I learned that if I move that coffee cup and you're in a bad mood, that could lead to me being emotionally abused, physically abused, what have you, right? So as kids, that's our space to learn what's safe. And if everything is unsafe, then we never learn how to develop those proper attachment and coping skills, right? Now, we're not in a space where we can develop and grow our brains and learn like we learn like all the other kids who have never gone through trauma or neglect, right? We don't learn the same, right? So as a kid, it's really about survival. How can I survive? Because I have no control over what's happening to me, right? I have no say over how my day goes or what happens, right? So we notice that traumatized children sometimes become adults who need to be in control, and everything has to be in a very controlled environment. And if anything's out of my control, then it's a problem, right? Because if I can't control it, then something bad's going to happen, right? So they're different than adults who are traumatized. Still doesn't make it any less than because you were traumatized as an adult rather than a child, right? But as an adult, we cope with things differently, right? We have words for things. We understand in a lot of ways what's happening to us, right? As a child, it may be confusing if we're sexually abused, right? Because as a child, I don't understand what that means, right? I don't know what's happening to me. I can't talk to anybody about it.
It's normal.
I think it's normal, right, to have those interactions, right? So as a child, those types of situations are confusing, right? As an adult, I know what this means. I know what it's like to be attacked, sexually assaulted, whatever. I know it's not right. It's still really upsetting, but I can understand it, right? Whereas a child doesn't understand. So I think that's the biggest difference between the two, is that as adults, we have control in some ways over our situations, and we can learn to adapt to them, right? They may not be the most healthy ways of adapting, but we adapt, right? Because we can control the environment. With kids, they're stuck in this abusive environment. They have no control, right? So you see with a lot of trauma comes substance use, right? Especially even with like teenagers. We see teenagers who have gone through trauma when they're little, and by middle school, high school, you know, they're substance abusing, sexually acting out, things like that, self-harming, yep, suicidal thoughts, all of those things. So I think that's the big difference between children and adults, is that as adults, we, even if they're not healthy, we cope, and you know, we can understand what happened. With children, it's long-term abuse, and now I can't develop the ability to be in a healthy, stable relationship because I don't understand that. I don't know what that's like, right? And so it's safer for me to, which is where you see a lot of these cycles of like violent relationships, right? It's safer for me to be in a relationship where I can expect the chaos, right? So if I know what to expect, AKA chaos, violence, arguments, all of those things, then at least I know that we're gonna have a heightened place of anger, violence, whatever, and then we're gonna come back down from it. And I know what to expect there. But if it's always stable, right? If it's a healthy, stable relationship, I don't know what to do with that. And I think you're not being real with me, right? Yeah, exactly.
Or you're purposely looking for, you know, that reinforcing that is going to say, no, that person doesn't love me. That person is going to at some point, hurt me. And it's going to go back to the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that I can totally relate to, because I mean, Nadji knows some of my history. I mean, I didn't meet my husband until my 30s, and you know, it was at a time where my mom, her cancer had come back, so it was like God's timing was just perfect there in terms of, you know, God brought my husband into my life right at a time that I really did need him, and I truly questioned, you know, everything because of all the previous relationships, you know, and what those things had kind of reinforced to me, or behaviors that I may have had that brought about, you know, things. And I remember us having a conversation, you know, where I shared with him about, I think it was like maybe like our fourth date or something like that, right? And it wasn't all the Hollywood, you know, like, you know, like I fell head over heels and stuff, like he was like that, you know, and stuff. And I was just like, I'm not sure about you, you know, and stuff. Like, I'm not sure about the chemistry. I really liked the discussion, but at that point, you know, had like zero expectation for any guy, you know. And then ended up having this conversation, probably our fourth date. It's kind of like, for me, I think it was the test, right? You know, and stuff, to be like, let me tell you about this, about me, that I have this history of trauma and abuse. And it wasn't like I was doing it, like I was like forcing him, like I was like saying like, go ahead and, you know, whatever. But I kind of was just like, I want to tell you, like, I know that you've dealt with this previously before in your relationships. If that's not something that you're interested in, like, you have a good out of jail free card right now. Like, you can go, like, I won't hold it against you, you know, and stuff. But like, that's like my reality. Like, so, you know, you just may not want to deal with that again, you know, and stuff. And I just remember him, you know, just asking one question of me: did I think it would affect me, you know, like intimacy wise? And I was like, it could, you know. I mean, it has. I mean, but he said, I mean, and the discussion was just so authentic and real that it really was like unlike any other discussion I had with any other person before, to show me his real heart, you know, to say, the only way his response after we talked was, the only way I'll ever leave you is if you tell me to, you know.
Wow.
And as a person that experienced abandonment, you know, through my trauma and all of that, like that was so foreign to me. And then like the first time you hear that, you're just like, no way.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no way, dude, you know, and stuff like that. And his actions were consistent with his speech throughout all of our marriage. And that's been something very healing for me, you know, and stuff has been, you know, through that to say, no, I see you and I know you and I love you, and all of your, you know, reactions that you're kind of trying to say, oh, well, you're going to do it anyway, so let me just like help it be easier for you, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
He wouldn't, that didn't sway him, that didn't stop him, you know, like, or any of that kind of stuff. And so it really has been, you know, was the thing I desired, was to have, you know, a husband and children in a marriage. But it was also my greatest fears, you know, and stuff, was that, would I be able to handle that? Would I be able to let somebody really love me in that way? And I think that love that comes through relationship, and love that comes through just a very secure presence that you provide, is healing, you know. It is what really helps us to say, those were things that never should have happened. And you affirm that, you confirm that, and say, yes, that never should have happened.
Yeah.
So EMDR was an important part of my experience. And I wonder if you could now explain to us what that is. What does that mean, even? You know?
Yes. Okay, so EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So sounds like a whole lot of stuff, right? Essentially, what it is it's allowing you to face your trauma in a safe space. And let me actually rewind that really quick. It's not even facing your trauma, because again, we talked a lot about how trauma is different for everybody, right? What I do as an EMDR therapist, I don't say, give me your worst traumas, right? I just say, tell me about things that upset you, right? And we'll talk about it and we'll figure out what we need to work on, right? So that's one of the first things we do after we do the intake, is really walking through, just write down whatever pops into your mind that's upsetting for you, right? Then as we start to go through what we call the targets, right? We really get into the understanding of like how that event affected you emotionally. How does it feel within your body? How upsetting is it for you right now as you talk about it, right? And then what's the core thought that comes with that event, right? And finding that core thought is really important, because really understanding is this event that's happened in my life, do I keep repeating to myself, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm unlovable, right? Like all of those things that in the unconscious we tell ourselves, right? Now we're placing that with this event. EMDR is what we call using bilateral stimulation, right? So some therapists literally use their hand and you follow their hand. I have a whole light bar with the headphones and the pulsers. I don't know if your therapist has all that.
We didn't have light. We had the little pulse.
The pulsers?
Yeah, we had the pulsers. Yeah.
And Yisel just mentioned tapping on your knees, right? Like there's many ways you can do it. For me as a therapist, it's the easiest to have the electronic stuff, because it allows me to like not do the counting of things or whatever, and I can just focus in on like what they're processing through. But
yeah, this bilateral, can you explain that? What do you mean, like both bilateral?
Yeah. So bilateral stimulation, right? Bilateral is one side to the next side, right? Bilateral. The point of it, and there's a few different theories behind it. They haven't really, to be quite honest, pinpointed exactly what it is that does it. So there's a few different theories on it. One of those theories, now we'll rewind back to when we talked about how trauma gets stuck in your memories, right? And we harness that memory, and however we process it at the moment is how we hold it, right? So with the bilateral stimulation, it overworks your working memory, overstimulates, overprocesses, whatever. And it doesn't allow your body to say, or your brain to say, this is unsafe. This memory is unsafe. Run away, avoid it, do whatever you can because I don't want to go there, right? So by allowing that bilateral stimulation to overwork that memory, you're not letting your mind shut down, right? So now I can re-access that traumatic memory or that upsetting memory or distressing memory, whatever it is, and I can start to process through that thought and get to a place of reliving it, re-experiencing it, and then understanding what happened in that moment and coming to a better understanding, or at least I can process it in a safer place so that I can start to work on the core belief that gets attached to it. So the working memory is one theory. The other theory is that it mimics REM sleep, right? So the same, if you ever watch like your dogs or babies when they're sleeping and their eyes are going really fast back and forth, right? That's our REM sleep. REM sleep is where we reprocess all of our memories during the day, right? So you ever watch the TV show or talk to somebody during the day, and now all of a sudden that same event pops into your dreams later, right? Yeah. So same idea. We're reprocessing all of those thoughts throughout our day. We're reprocessing this same event because we're holding on to that target, we're holding on to that core belief, and now we're allowing ourselves to organize the thoughts on it. For me, specifically when I did it, it was, I told my trainer, I said, I feel like this is the first time I've actually been able to like quiet my mind, be away from all distractions, and really just focus in on this one thing, right? This one memory that I have. And when do we ever do that in our lives? Never. If anything, we avoid them at all costs, right? Because they're upsetting and we don't want to feel upset. So the moment that you start to do EMDR, you're finally giving attention to this thing that lingers in the background all the time. And you're giving that focused attention so you can really make sense of what happened and how it makes you feel. And it's a beautiful thing. So the beautiful thing about EMDR is that it helps you process through things in therapy at a much faster rate than you would doing talk therapy and things like that. Not that those things are not helpful, because they are, right? But the leaps and strides that my clients make doing EMDR is amazing. Like, we go to places in a month's time that would take me with other clients 4, 5, 6 months time, a year, right? Because I may not get you to talk about that kind of stuff or even think about that kind of stuff. So, so it's a beautiful thing. And Yisel actually also does, I'll let you explain it more, but she is trained in traumatic incident reduction, which is similar but different in some ways. So, but also super helpful with trauma processing.
Yeah. And I actually started, so when I did my internship for my master's, I picked a place that, was just focused on trauma. And that's all I did for many, many years of my career, was just all about trauma, right? From human trafficking in kids to unaccompanied minors crossing the border and all of that. So I really fell in love with that evidence-based technique not only because, you know, how it helped me, like train me really as a therapist, right? To understand those things and not only see a label or a behavior or a symptom, but going deeper. I also had to sit down as a client and work on my own traumas before I was ever assigned a caseload of any clients, right? So when my client is in front of me, I have some type of idea of how bad can it get, right? I tell them like, this is a roller coaster and we're gonna go on this ride together, okay? It's gonna go up and it's gonna feel really, really bad before it feels really good, but then we're gonna come down, you're like, I went through that, right? And so when you were talking about at the beginning about like the CDs, I also like to explain to them that's what we do in therapy, right? We all have like our little storage of memories, right? We are gonna pick one while doing the work of the traumatic incident reduction, right? After we do the intake and we take, it goes from anywhere, from car accidents to not only experiencing trauma, but also witnessing trauma as the other person, and also doing stuff to yourself as well. So it encompasses like all flows of, not only experiencing, but watching, experiencing, and doing it to yourself as well. So we picked something from that storage or CD, right? And we start to play it. And it's very, it's highly directed, but very person-centered, right? But highly directed because instead of you going like this wide, I'm gonna help you, to help you like bring it here and focus on that particular incident that happened, right? And through my instructions, I'm gonna take you to where were you at that time? What do you notice? How do you felt, right? And I'm gonna let you watch and play back that movie by yourself first, and then I'm gonna ask you, tell me what happened, and you're gonna tell me. And we're gonna go through repetition, so it's kind of exposure therapy, right? I'm gonna expose you to the same thing that you were at that moment, so you're gonna have the same feelings and the same reactions, but in a safe space with someone who's not going to judge you. So who, if you open your eyes, my presence, Yisel, is gonna be there for you, with no reactions, no disgust, no judgment, no telling you what to do, because we're gonna process the whole thing from the beginning to the end until you get to that end point, that resolution, that insight, that conclusion about what happened to you. And there's nothing more powerful than for me to tell my clients, you did that work. I did. I just gave you the instructions and provided the safe space. But you came to your own conclusion. And now we are able to take that CD with the whole memory from the beginning to end. Now it's not just fragments, right? It's the whole thing from the beginning to end. And those unwanted feelings and emotions, that anxiety, that sadness, those triggers are no longer there. So you can tell me things that happened to you, but that unwanted feeling or reaction is not going to be there anymore, because we processed it from the beginning to the end, and now you can go back and store it in the little, in your section, and move on, and heal. And I still remember to this day when I see those transformations, I'm like, oh my God, it still works. I'm like, of course it works. It doesn't work, but it's so empowering to see, even from how our clients come in, how they dress, how, if they don't put makeup, and at the end you see like
a different person,
like from the moment they come in and then they say hello or interact with other people outside. Like, it's huge.
We as a business, like, we talk about the transformations that we see as a business. As partners, we talk about the clients we work with and the transformations we see, and even though we know that it works, we're always like, guys, this was amazing what my client was able to do this week or last week or whatever. And it's so heartwarming to know that you've been through something really horrible, right? Or you've experienced a long-term really horrible thing, right? But you can make it through to the other side and use that same experience to be a strength of yours now, right? That you see that as, this is something I went through and I understand it now and I can move forward in my life. I don't have to, I don't have to feel this way.
And moving away from that of what's wrong with you to what happened to you, right? There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened.
Yes, that's so empowering right now. I mean, as you're saying it, and I'm hearing it, like I said, from the other chair, you know, which is so close and comfortingly close to, you know, to me, is that that you know, and I had expressed that when I would come in and sit with my therapist, you know, in the beginning, it's very intimidating, right? You know, so the CD that I picked in the beginning was like a really mellow CD. You know? Like, let's just see how this plays. Like, I don't know, you know, about like I don't know about all this, you know, and stuff. But we played it. I, you know, came out from the other side, was like, what the hell just happened? I mean, I'm now listening to this thing and it does not sound like the same music, right? And something that was really beautiful was that, you know, this is a calling for you. Like, you're passionate about this because this is what you were created to do, is to be healers of people in this way. And when I sit there, you know, with my therapist, Dawn, and she's a psychologist, that she just has like such like, that's her highest and best use, right? Like, I could do all these things, but this is the thing God made me for. And that he gave you a brain, Lisa, that can heal itself in whatever ways that we can access here on earth, right? So we're just gonna like help your brain do what it can do, like naturally, when we just allow the circumstances to line up. So you go from in the beginning to being that, you know, like you said, like, I'm so broken, I can't function, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overloaded, to then you start having, like, just like anything in life, right? That's like new, that you're scared of, and then you do it, and then you realize, like, it didn't kill me, like, I can do it, you know? Then the next time you come in, you're kind of like, it's just not too bad, you know? And like 2 sessions in, I was like, let's crush it. You know, what are we gonna crush today? You know, and stuff like that. And she's like, okay, what are we crushing? You know, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna crush these memories. We're gonna take down these giants, you know, and stuff. And you do start feeling that, you know, and stuff. You've gone from like just being beaten down, you know, like just feeling like life is just handing me all this stuff, to then feeling like, wait, no. And it's like taking your power back, but not like in this, you know, like sometimes we can overboard that, like, I'm taking my power, you know, and like you swing really far to that other side, and now you're just like, there, everyone's like, what the hell, you know? So, but you kind of find yourself then swinging to this place where you kind of like feel like yourself, like, this is who I was created to be, and this is who God made me. All those things, yes, they happen to me. That doesn't make me me. Those don't define me. Those actually can improve me. I can be a better version of myself now because I have empathy. You know, I understand, you know, and stuff, what it is to feel those things. When I hear people cry, a gut cry, and I'm like, no, I don't even know what you're crying about, but I've been there and I know that place. I can just put a hand on you. I can sit next to you. I can just love you like that right there. And they look up at you kind of like, you know, like, you're going to judge me, you're going to whatever. No, I mean, do you know what I've been through? You know, I mean, no, I just can have a lot more compassion and understanding. And I think the thing that I'm working now is having that same compassion for myself that I have for other people. Because I think we can, from being traumatized and being told kind of your whole life to just suck it up, just do what you got to do. I don't know why you're complaining. You're making such a big deal out of these things. Is that really just changes, you know, your idea of how you need to approach situations. And then for me, it really just became very hard on myself, you know, to always think like, because I can't function right now, or because whatever's happening, there's something wrong with me again. And I think it's like what you said, you know, it's undoing all those old scripts. It's, you know, going back to those CDs and saying, you know what, you think that's on the playlist, but that song's not even there, you know, and stuff. And so let's just go into that place together. You're going to be okay. I'm here with you. If it ever gets too much, that's okay. You know, we're going to go at your pace. And that's the thing I love. I never felt when I came in, and I would never feel that with any of you, if I came into your office, you know, like, well, yeah, this is the this is the script. This is how we're going to go. You know, you're ready today to get into abuse number 17. Okay. We're going to do that today, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, you come in and it's like, there's no agenda for me. Yeah. I'm letting you know today, this is what I'm dealing with. Yep. And some days we would go into EMDR, and some days I need to talk about my dad, or I need to talk about other things that were happening. And she was totally cool with whatever. And we prayed together, and she would come into that space. Jesus was in that space with me, you know, and that was really beautiful for me, because what is psychotherapy, guys? What does that actually mean? Soul care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we went into those places, you know, and stuff. The mind, body, the spirit, right? The soul, all those things are connected. And it was amazing when I had a place to be able to express myself in all those ways. Physically, I'm feeling like this. She would say, where do you feel this in your body? Oh, I feel this in my stomach, right? Well, that tells you something, right? Yeah, that tells you I'm afraid, you know? And now we go in there, right? So now I'm just holding the little things, and we're reprocessing, and we're going back. And really, guys, like, all it is like, I'm saying whatever comes to my mind. Yep. It's all it is freedom to just, like you said, nothing else matters. I'm in this one little space right now, and I'm just going to say whatever. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like it's unwinding something that was wound up. And so it's like, you don't even understand sometimes, like, why am I saying this, or where is this going?
Yeah.
But you're not really thinking about it. You're just like letting yourself just like talk out of your head, literally.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And then as you're saying all the things, you know, there's that person on that other side that's just, you know, just that love and that compassion to just say, what are you feeling now? You know, she would just say, like, what are you feeling now? Yeah. Well, blah, 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 you know, and stuff like that. I'm feeling scared about that. I don't like that way that felt. I didn't have any control. I didn't have any say in that situation. Okay, go with that. You know, it was just kind of like, okay, like a guide is just standing there, like, go there, you know? So like, really? That guy should go there? Okay. So then I start going there, and then something else opens up, you know?
And then take you somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we go there, and then she says, okay, you know, actually, like, I'll tell her stop, you know, stuff like, let's stop right now. You know, I'm in, you know, and for somebody like you're talking about, you know, because of my trauma, I did need to be controlled. I do often feel that need to control my environment. And so it did help to be able to say, well, we can go as fast or as slow as you want. You know, these pulses can go quicker like this. And we did all of that. And then at the end of it, it's amazing. I can't even, you know, like, you can put the science behind it, right? To be able to say, I do not think about this situation the same that I did before. Yeah. I can't even tell you why I can't, but I can just say that thing that I believed about myself, that I wasn't good enough, that it was my fault, that I caused something to go wrong, that I can't handle things, whatever that thing is, that negative cognition, right? That thought that came to me because of that situation is no longer there. Mm-hmm. And that I believe something positive about myself to say, wow, I got through that. I can handle that. I did handle that. Yeah. I'm strong, you know, I am this, whatever that thing is that you is now replacing that negative view. Yeah. And it is life altering. It's the only way that I can explain it. So you ladies are like my heroes. You are.
Honestly though, let me just reiterate what Yisel said earlier. Like, we're very passionate about what we do, and we love our job so much. And the reason that I think we feel so passionate about trauma and about the methods that we use is because at the end of the day, yes, we have to be trained in it. It takes work for us to learn how to do it, but it is the client doing the work. Like, I can't force you to go through it, right? So if you choose, I don't want to work on that, or I'm not going to do anything about it, then there's nothing that gets done from it, right? So while, yes, we're trained to do it, and we can be your kind of guides through it, at the end of the day, it's a lot of work on your part as the client, and it's really, really courageous and beautiful to watch people really step into their own power to do the work and to make that transformation. It's why we keep doing what we do, right? And it's why we love it so much, because it's an amazing thing at the end of a few weeks, a few months, to look at the client who's now living a different life, living a different version of themselves, and going like, thank you so much. And I can turn back, and I know you guys do this too, and go, thank yourself, because you did this. Like, you're the reason that you're doing well now, right? So I don't want anybody to ever look back and go, oh, well, what I went through isn't as bad as what other people go through, right? They're worse. They experience worse, so I should just get over it, right? Or I should just move on. I don't think anybody should have to live that way. So don't minimize the things that you've experienced. It's all different for everybody. And if you're living in a life where it's difficult to go about your day, or you find yourself in these struggling relationships, or you're just unhappy, you don't have to live like that. It doesn't matter if you think somebody else had it worse or not. You're struggling, you're going through a hard time, and you don't deserve to live that way, you know? So
yeah, that's good. Do you get that a lot? Do you have a lot of people?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not, what I went through is not that bad. There's people that have been through this and that and this. And it's like,
or no, abuse. No, I haven't been beaten or kicked or
right.
Have you experienced emotional abuse?
Right.
Being supported, right?
Yeah.
Not being, well, yes, but it wasn't something like, I could have died from it. I'm like, but you could. Because, there's changes in your brain and the hormones and the chemicals and all of that. Yep. Right? So that like it's like hearing out loud what you're saying to yourself, but hearing it from somebody else,
right?
Kind of validating, like, right. Okay, so yes, maybe I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
It might not look like what other people have gone through, but I have.
Right.
From what I perceived, I don't know what I went through.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important, right? And I think what you described is the helping relationship, right? Is that is people say, well, I can just talk to my friend about this, What? It's not quite the same, right, guys? No. How long did you go to school for this? I mean,
yeah. Oh, I'm still in school.
Yeah.
But you know what I told them? Like, yes, it's like you're releasing some of it, but talking about it. But think about it. Your friends and your family are going to give you their opinion based on their own experiences, right? And if you're talking to me how traumatic it is to get on a car and have to go on that highway, and you have my sister or my friend that went through a car accident, like, but that's nothing. What do you mean that you can't? I mean, come on, you gotta get moving with your life. Like, what do you mean you can't go to work, go to school because you can't get in a car accident, right? Yeah. So right. We're more in like a neutral space where we're like, well, yes, it makes sense that you're not able to do this because this is what happened at the brain level. These are the chemicals that happen and how it's stored in your body, right? So it's like kind of pointing out things that you're like, I always like to like, really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then coming back the next session and be like, I explained this to like my mom, and she was like, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like another important thing there is just that you provide a space for us to come to these realizations, right? And really, it is this both and, right? I have to be willing to say it. Yeah. And then your expertise comes into it to guide me, and stuff to your experience, what you know about that allows me then to make these connections that I couldn't make myself, and correct me when I am focusing on the wrong thing, maybe, stuff. Obsessive thoughts, things like that happen with, anxiety. You really get entrenched in something that, people are, why do you keep talking about that? I mean, I thought we were over that, and then again, you're thinking something's wrong with me, and stuff like that. Well, yes, and it's because of these things. So I need somebody to professionally come in and say, okay, yes, what about this, and stuff. Or, and the more that I work with my therapist, the more insight that she has into my story. And she then sees all my files that I'm sharing with her and goes, okay, yeah, we did talk about that over here. And then how about this right now, So as we're continuing that journey together, it's like, it's not like a friend where, it's not even that she has the expertise and stuff, but that the relationship is about me,
Yeah.
and the relationship is focused on what my needs are, whereas other relationships have to be focused about both,
Right.
So this is just a time for me to get my love tank filled up, or vent when I need to, or cry when I need to, or whatever that particular thing is that day that's needing to happen, that then we can get that to the point where it needs to, and then it helps me to be a better version of myself. I might have, when I come out of therapy, sometimes I feel really great. Sometimes that might be a tough session that I'm depleted a bit, and she'll say, you should really care for yourself today. Like go, do the bubble bath. Have the wine if you feel, a glass. Be sensible about it. But those kind of things that it's kind of almost like a mom, like a nurturing kind of relationship that's just like, you do you, like in a good way, not like in that crazy, like go all out, hurt yourself or other people way, but like, yeah, it's good, and I just think that like that's what the world needs more of. The world needs more of things. We know the suicide rate is rising. We know that people feel more isolated than ever. We know depression, anxiety. These are the real epidemics, right? We know that the pandemic is happening. We've known that. But this is the greater epidemic. And I think that sometimes we keep saying, well, we need to destigmatize this, or we need to do this, or whatever. And how do we do it? We do it like this. We write a blog, we ask a friend, can you help? And then we have a conversation like this. And we could do more things like this. And I think that if you guys are willing, and there's an audience that wants to hear it, we can do more. But in the meantime, what do you think would be some good resources? Now, somebody says, wow, okay, I'm interested, or I want to know more. What's your website? What are some things that we can look into? And by the way, you guys are in Florida, so I know that you can practice. You're licensed in Florida. You can practice throughout your state.
Yeah.
But this is available everywhere, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So so our website is mindbodyicc.com. So, so you can find us on the web, but we ourselves are on Psychology Today, and that's a really great resource to find a therapist near you. You can filter on Psychology Today, so you can, if you really want to try EMDR, or you have trauma, or if you have depression, or you're suffering from a personality disorder or something along those lines, you can filter finding a therapist using all of their filters. And if you have insurance that you want to use, you can use Psychology Today to filter that. And that's a beautiful resource, because I think not enough people know about it. Or it pops up when you search, but I think that the ability to filter things is really important, because hundreds of therapists show up, right? And then it gets overwhelming. It's like, I'll just click the first one. Yeah. But that might not be the right one for you, right? Like Yisel mentioned, like when you have a heart issue, you go to a specialist. Same idea here. Yeah. I'm not going to take on a couple or do couples counseling, because that's not my thing, right? That's not what I do. Nadji and Yisel, they're couples therapists. They do individual as well, but they have training in that. So if you're looking for a couples therapist, I'm not going to be your person, right? Now, if you're looking for a trauma therapist, okay, I could be your person, right? So I think that's a really important way to find somebody that works for you. But there's so many different avenues out there now. I mean,
Yeah. And tips that I always tell the clients, even if they don't end up being our clients, you know, get a feeling for that person that it's, you know, on the other side. Ask those questions. This is a very intimate relationship that you're about to go in. So ask the questions. You know, if you're coming because of anxiety and depression and trauma, do you have training on that? You know, what are some of the therapies that you use? What do I expect? I don't know how many times I'm like, I'm new, I've never done this. How does it look like? I'm like, let me walk you through what it looks like, right? You all of that. So getting a sense of, okay, I like the person that you know that I can hear on the other side. You know, it sounds like she's knowledgeable about what she's talking about. Right. And you know, it sounds like not going just with the first person that pops up. Yeah. Right. Get a feeling, you know, write emails, ask questions. Continue, you know, we have free consultations where we talk to our clients. Right. Tell me what got you to seek out therapy, right? I'm interested in knowing those things, right? That special connection from the beginning of, you know, you're not just another client, right? You're that client. I'm gonna tailor our sessions to you and your needs and what is important to me, not to myself or what I think was traumatic to you. No. What are your needs? What do you need to work on, right? And how can we get there?
And Nadji, you're working with couples and you're working with other individuals, correct?
Yeah, anxiety, depression. They do more of the trauma work, to be honest. They are amazing, intelligent with that. They just do the best, they do the best job with that stuff. I know my strengths. That's why it's important to know your own strengths. And like they were saying, you're going to embark on a beautiful journey, a difficult journey with this person. So you need to make sure that that's somebody you feel comfortable with. Like if you want to do this journey with me because I'm really good at, you know, dealing with depression or anxiety or life transition, you know, I'm your gal, you know, I can definitely do that with you. But again, it's a journey and you want to make sure that you are going on that ride with somebody that you feel really comfortable with, you know. If you need prayer, you know, I'm that person for you because I involve prayer in with some of my clients if that's what they want to do. You know, I'm a big believer in God and I think it's wonderful that you can have that connection with your clinician. Like you said, you prayed with yours, you know, and that's what you need for some people. Yeah. You know, having that spiritual connection and ability. So it's a lot. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And we also like take really good pride of that of when we get a call, we don't immediately like, oh, I'm gonna be their therapist. We talk about it. This is the client, these are their needs, this is what they need. Okay, who fits that profile, right? Who's gonna be able to better serve that client, right? In a way that you know they're gonna be served in the way that they need to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like a thoughtfulness that goes into that. And I love that, you know, that there is the ability to pray, but there's also, it is science and you can come into it with your own beliefs and find a space, you know, that will meet your needs, like you said, as well. So there's that both and, right? You know, that for me, I found Dawn on catholictherapist.com. And, you know, we were connected. I had worked with another therapist before, but it wasn't covered by my insurance. And so Carol was good at the time. And then I was like, well, they're not going to be able to keep a weekly, you know, and what you do is so necessary and you've earned every dollar that you charge for sure, you know, so, but I needed a little insurance to help, you know, with this. I knew we were going to be on a long journey is what I was saying. And I love that you call it a journey too, because we have that as part of ours, Little with Great Love, as a restoration journey. And, you know, when I come and bring my story and I have a team of women that we all from different backgrounds, you know, my story involves trauma, my story involves infertility, my story involves those things. And those are just parts of my story, you know, and there's also beautiful joy and love and family and adventures and all other kinds of things. And so when we created Little with Great Love, it was to be the home, heart, and health. I thought these are 3 critical areas that really help with our restoration. And mental health for me is a huge topic, not just from my background, you know, studying it from my trauma, but from my healing. And that's really what we wanted to talk about today, was to be able to provide a space where they could maybe answer some questions that people may not feel comfortable calling about, or don't know where to find the help. They're here to say the help is there. The help is available. People are trained to be able to help you with trauma, be able to help you with anxiety, depression, divorce, whatever those things are that are causing pain in your life. And you're no less of a person by going through that. You're actually a very strong person. And that your ability to say that I need help really just allows somebody to come alongside you and to accompany you through that, and to provide the resources and tools that you're going to need to have a more full, rich, abundant life. Because as they know, and as I know, and as I know you want life to the full. And so really it's about becoming more yourself and becoming fully alive. So those are my thoughts. Ladies, any parting thoughts before we leave? I know we could talk about this for hours.
Right? Really could. I mean, thank you.
Yes.
Honestly, thank you for allowing us to share in this capacity, because I think we have so much passion for it, and we just want as many people out there to know that they deserve a better life than they're living. They don't have to live how they live, and they don't have to feel a certain way or continue to function the way they function. That they deserve to be happy. And so thank you for giving us the space to do that. We love it.
Yeah. Well, I love you all. And, I think that that's exactly, you nailed it. You nailed it. Hit it out of the park, there is that. I think for me, like, that's hard sometimes for me to always put that priority as myself, right?
Yeah.
Because the world comes at us with a lot of things. I said, this is important, and our jobs, our lives are very busy. And so it's easy to make excuses, and stuff to say, well, my family needs me and all those things. Well, what am I to my family if I can't function? What am I to my family, my job, all of those things? And then later down the line, I've got all these health issues and, obesity, addiction, any of those things that normally can flow out of the trauma as a coping mechanism, as a way to like fill in those voids. So I love that. I think it's important to say, you deserve that. That's for you, and that God wants that for you. And it's more just to have that freedom and fulfillment that everybody's longing for. And I'm here to say that not the same person I was when I was 4 years old, when I went through that. And it's really through professionals like this that have come alongside me and provided the support and resources that I needed. So look them up on their website. We'll put it on the screen here, and stuff, so that you can reach out to them with any questions that you have. They'd be more than happy to. If you can't find somebody, I'm sure that they'll do whatever they can to direct you to resources.
So even though we're outside of Florida, or anybody else might be outside of Florida, we also, as a business, provide self-care training for businesses, for individuals.
Trauma-informed care, right? That's one of our goals, to make that a training that doesn't have to be mental background. Any organization, all of the employees working should know what trauma is, to identify the symptoms, right? To be able to know what's going on. That should be like a training that everybody should know,
right?
Being trauma-informed as an organization, right?
I love that. Let's make that our 20 our 2021. For organizations, just be trauma informed. And I think that even just opens the door to say, wow, we could train ourselves to learn how to do that, to understand what that is, and then be able to provide resources and tools to people, so that we don't just look at the symptoms and say, look like you're having a bad day, take the afternoon off, right?
We don't immediately look at a child that is not able to focus on school and immediately say, he has an attention problem. Well, let's look at the symptoms and the things that come from trauma, right?
Right.
So that's why I think it's so important. let's just get it out there. Everybody
Yeah,
gets
everybody,
trained
you know.
trauma informed, and
Yeah.
then we can all speak the same language.
Yeah,
You know?
so we can do via Zoom, and we've done it, you know, during
Yeah.
the pandemic. We can't go to your office, right? But we've done Zoom trainings where we can provide that self-care, that trauma-informed kind of fill the gap for whatever that agency needs. And so that's another avenue to really help get the word out there. So we are therapists, but we do more than just therapy.
Yes, we're trained in school, we train
Yeah.
others. So yeah,
Yeah.
check out our website.
Yeah. Your health insurance website, you look up that, they'll give you all kinds of resources. And like you said, you know, go through and find don't just take number one, do your homework just like you would do for anybody that you're going to trust in your life. And, you know, make that first step, make a call, send an email. I did an email. Whatever that is, to be able to do that. Send us a message. If you're trying to figure out what to do, we're here for you, and we want to join you on the journey. So I want to thank the ladies from MindBodyICC.com, right, for joining me today. And thank you for being a part of our restoration journey by sharing your stories, your gifts, and your hearts with us.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless, guys. We'll see you next time.